Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland. With me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast. I'm Kelly, and today we're talking all about your wedding priorities and your vision and advocating for yourself. Now, you might be in a really awkward situation where maybe somebody in your life is suggesting things to you that just don't work, and you are having to be really firm on the things that you have chosen to do for your wedding, and you're having to say no to people in your world. It could be that your best friend is recommending suppliers that she used for her wedding, and maybe they just don't match the style that you're after. Or it could be that your mom is overwhelming you with loads and loads of ideas and suggestions that you just really don't love. Either way, whatever the situation is, it's time to advocate for your wedding vision and your priorities. And today I'm going to walk you through some really practical things that you can do to come to grips with what you want your wedding to be about, and how you can make sure that those in your world know exactly what you want and that your wedding dreams are what's brought to life. So the very first step is, in order to advocate for your priorities, you need to know what they are. You can't just have an idea in your head of what you want. You actually have to be firm in knowing what is a priority for you. So this is more than just picking colors, choosing a theme, although those things are also very, very helpful. But it's more than that. It's having an understanding of what you want your guests to experience at your wedding. It's how you want people to feel. It's what you want things to be about at your wedding. And it's putting words to those things that are very important to you. Now, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about this particular point now, because in episode 33 of the podcast, I walked you through very specific things you can do when you're choosing your color, your branding, your style. But again, it's not only the colors, it's how you want things to feel, how you want your guests to experience your wedding day. So my first piece of advice is to take some time to articulate what you want your wedding to be about. So listen to episode 33. It's all about coming up with the right language about how you want your wedding to look and feel. It's choosing the colors. It's knowing how to make those decisions and what to keep in mind. And then you'll know what you can actually prioritize, because you'll know what you want your wedding to be about. But point number 2 is you actually need to write these things down. So it's not enough to just have an idea in your head of the kind of vibe you want your wedding to be about. But if you want to advocate for the things that are important to you, it's really helpful to write down what is important to you. You can then keep revisiting what you've written down as you make decisions, as you choose suppliers, as you work on your budget. All of those things, when you come into those milestone moments, you can keep coming back to your priorities to help you know how to make certain decisions. Now, everyone's priorities will be different. So I always recommend, firstly, sitting down with your partner, because your priorities and their priorities, those are the only ones that matter. No one else's priorities matter in this instance. It's just you and your partner. But now, your priorities may be different to one another, which is completely fine. You can work with that. But your priorities will be different to another couple's priorities. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples so you can kind of understand what I mean. So what I want you to do is to write down a list of what's important to you and in the order. So even if you're just giving me your top 2 things, it might look something like this: having a full guest list of 200 people at the wedding. And that might mean prioritizing a venue. Your second most important thing could be having a really fun party. And in that instance, you would be prioritizing a really good band and DJ. Another person's list might be like this. Top of the list might be having a sophisticated meal. And in that case, you would be prioritizing the food and the drinks and, the catering team, and perhaps the venue if they are the ones who are sourcing those things for you. And maybe next in line for that person would be the flowers and the decor. So again, there really is no wrong answer here. It's what is important to you. And you want to make sure that you can articulate what's important to you, so that as you take the next steps in the wedding planning, you can keep reminding yourself and your partner and those around you of what the priority is. So now the next thing is you create an appropriate budget. So now your wedding budget is a very tangible way to put a focus on the things that are important to you. Now, of course, there might be some items that are very important to you, but they are not expensive items. So I'm not saying that if something would normally be really inexpensive, you suddenly make it very, very pricey, and that's how you know it's important. But it's more that when you're prioritizing things in your budget, if you need to, put more money into something, or you need to reallocate the budget in some way, you'll know which things you need to really keep at the top of the priorities, and which things maybe you don't need to spend as much money on them because perhaps they are less important to you than you thought they would be. So here are some examples. Actually, before we get to that, let me first say, when you're setting your budget, if you're prioritizing things that are important to you, the reverse is then true, that if something is less important to you, it therefore means you don't need to stress about it as much and you can worry about it later because it's not as important. But now with the examples, if we look at the ones that we made earlier. So with the examples that we looked at earlier, somebody's top priority was having a full guest list of 200 people. So then when it comes to prioritizing your budget, it means having enough money in the budget for a venue that can accommodate 200 people. This person also said that they wanted the party to be a big priority. So that would then mean allocating enough money so that you get a really good band and DJ, and not just hiring some person who plays at a pub nearby, but focusing on somebody who you know is a great wedding band and wedding DJ. Then we looked at the other priority list, somebody who wanted a sophisticated meal. They would then make a focus on hiring a venue that has world-class chefs and caterers. And then their next priority was the decor and flowers. And again, you won't be tempted to grab bouquets from the high street. You would actually put your budget focus towards those things that are really important to you. And that is a tangible way of ensuring that everybody around you knows that these are really, really important things. Okay, next thing is you'll work with professional suppliers. Now, really, this is the best way to make sure that your priorities are in full focus, is to work with a team of professional suppliers. It is literally their job to understand your vision and to bring it to life. Their job is not to give you a bunch of ideas and hope that you take them. If they're giving you ideas, it's because they're trying to understand what your focus is, and they want to see if they can get to grips with your priorities, the style of your wedding, the look of your wedding. And sometimes you'll have a priority, you'll have a branding theme, whatever it is, and a supplier will suggest something because they think it could really bring your ideas to life. So yes, you will get suggestions, but wedding suppliers who do this for a living, it's their job to know what's important to you. And so they understand the boundaries of having a suggestion, but being okay with you saying, actually, that's not quite a good fit. We'd rather go in this direction. So working with a really good team of wedding suppliers will help you to advocate for yourself, because you've got someone on your team who can help you to articulate what's important to you, and they can fight for you with those in your world. And you know what? Worst case scenario, your wedding planner will become kind of like a wedding bestie to you, and you could always blame them for things. You know, I was a wedding planner and I was completely okay with being blamed for things. So like, let's say your mom just keeps suggesting things to you and you just don't like the things that she's suggesting. So with your planner's permission, you could say something like this. Oh, you know, I asked our wedding planner and she didn't think that was going to work. You know what? It's a polite way of saying, please leave me alone. We're not going to do this. But you're blaming someone else. And you know what? If you need to do it, you need to do it. The next thing is another way of handling a situation like that. And that is, if you're going to advocate for your own priorities, you need to be okay with having awkward conversations. If somebody is pushing you to book suppliers that you just don't want to book, if somebody just doesn't understand your vision at all, you're probably going to have to talk to them about it. With some people, you can just kind of put it off, but with other people who are very close to you, you need to be okay with having an awkward conversation, but in a kind way. So here are some examples. Scenario 1, your wedding coordinator recommends that you host your ceremony in a different room to what you had in mind. Perhaps you pictured having an outdoor ceremony. If that suggestion isn't in line with your priorities and your vision, you could say something like this, in a kind but firm way. The room you've suggested is really beautiful, but we've actually chosen a greenery theme and we would really love to host our ceremony outdoors. Is there an option to have your recommended venue as a backup in case of the rain? So in that way, you're saying, hey, your idea is good. We just have a different vision, but yours would make a really good backup space if it rains on the day. Here's the next scenario. Your aunt is showing you photos of a wedding that she went to, and she's suggesting decor ideas that you just don't love at all. You could say something like this: hey, the wedding that you're showing me is so pretty. Thanks so much for sharing it. We've actually chosen a really different theme, so I don't think that this decor will match what we're planning. But I also don't want to ruin the surprise though, so keep an eye out on the day. So what you're politely saying is, I don't want your ideas, but I also don't want you involved in knowing what we're doing. I really want you to find out on the day what things are going to be like. So wait until you get there and you're going to see all the things we're planning. Most people will understand what you mean and they will politely back off. And if you need to, you can have a slightly firmer conversation. But the idea here is, if you're going to advocate for your wedding priorities, the things that are important to you, your vision for the day, you need to actively do that. And you need to be okay having conversations. The final thing is, in advocating for yourself, it's important to be realistic. Sometimes things just aren't possible. Sometimes you want a dream venue and it's not available on your date. And then you need to sacrifice either the venue or the date. Sometimes your budget just doesn't stretch as far as you need to, and you're not able to prioritize things in the way that you would have hoped because you just can't afford to prioritize everything. And then you need to have a conversation with your partner and work out what you will focus on and what you just don't mind about. So this is my gentle reminder to be realistic, understand what's important to you, focus on what you can actually achieve, and then no matter what, your wedding day is going to be amazing. So decide now that your priority is to have an amazing wedding, whatever that looks like. Be realistic with what's possible, and then you'll find out that the process becomes less stressful because you're realistic about what you can and can't control. And then you'll enjoy planning your wedding even more. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.